it's Dr. D. Today I want to talk about writing the narratives for the Cal TPA. If you've watched my other videos, you know that your California Teacher Performance Assessment will include both videos and a written narrative. Today I'm going to be highlighting the do's and don'ts of writing a successful narrative. And this is pretty much based on evidence that I've found in terms of students who fail based on their written narrative and students that I've worked with and the advice that I've given them so that they could successfully pass the Cal TPA. The writing piece is so important, and you can have a phenomenal video and you could be an amazing teacher, but more often than not, if you're not writing the narrative in a way that communicates to the reader your passion, your strengths, your understanding of learning theories, and your understanding of learners, you may not pass. So let's get started in talking about 3 critical things for writing your Cal TPAs. All right. Step 1 is your voice is your choice. You are not required to write in either a first, second, or third person when you're writing your narratives. However, when you start getting into your Cal TPA templates, you're going to see that they do lend itself to different kinds of voices. For example, if I'm in the third part and I'm reflecting, okay, I've done my lesson plan, I've done my lesson plan rationale, and now I'm reflecting based on my videos. I am definitely going to use that first person voice, and I'm going to talk about what I see. Also, in terms of the last part where you're applying, you're looking at your evidence, you're reflecting, and then you're saying, okay, what am I going to do differently? In the future, I will blah, blah, blah. So the voice will shift. Your first part of the Cal TPA, where you're planning and you're doing your lesson plan rationale, that can really be read like a lawyer's briefing, right? Because you want to hone in on being objective and sharing evidence, and that requires you to kind of look at the big picture and talk about what evidence you are using, whether it's a student's IEP, the student's ELL placement levels, your state standards, things like that. Your evidence that you're using to plan instruction. So step 1 is, your voice will vary and be ready to shift. An important part of writing in the first person is just being really empathetic and being really comprehensive about what you learned, okay? For me, it's like for some reason when I read the Cal TPAs and I say, wow, this student learned so much from this experience, they're a rock star teacher, because part of training teachers is we want them to go into the profession knowing that they're probably going to experience some really great times and some really times where they failed a lot in the classroom. And that's okay. The big piece is that we reflect on what we did and we grow from it. Yeah, this lesson didn't work out the way that I had initially planned. I wanted to do this project, and even though the kids were initially really excited about it, reflecting on, the progress of how long it took for that project to actually be completed, I know that now I could have done a lot of things differently. I could have provided the students with checklists and rubrics and given them more specific feedback so that they would have moved forward in their projects. So that's what we want to hear, is that, that you understand as a teacher that reflection is something that's going to make you grow as a professional, and that not everything's going to be perfect, and that's okay. And that was really hard for me, because I have to tell you, I was probably a little bit of a perfectionist too when I started teaching, and would spend hours every night teaching and planning. And all of these things do take time, and they will get easier, and you will get your Friday and your Saturday and your Sundays back. Just bear with the process. So that's tip 1. Tip number 2 is always use asset-based language. And if you look at the Cal TPA definitions of terms, you'll know that asset-based language reflects the assets of your students, reflects their strengths, reflects their cultural backgrounds and who they are and what they come into the classroom with. So make sure that when you are reading and reviewing your CalTPA, you are avoiding using any deficit language. Typically, that will stick out more so than anything else. It's like sitting on a white sofa and seeing like a spot. It shows up way more than if you're on a gray sofa. So be aware. Notice there's no spots here. There's no stains. It's brand new shirt. That you should avoid deficit language and always think about your students' strengths. And also highlight how you know this. Are you doing student inventories? I love when I hear that, the teachers have spent the extra time getting to know their kids, whether it's calling the families or, chatting with them during recess or doing inventories and surveys and, fun little exit tickets and icebreakers and getting to know my learners. So throughout that process, you want to always kind of go back when you're writing your narratives about how you got to know your students. And certainly you want to make it evidence-based too, but highlighting those assets, okay? So you may have students and you will have students that have IEPs and goals. And again, focus on their strengths. And that is always found in an IEP. The parents and the former teachers will highlight things that the students enjoy, things that the students do well. And you want to tie that in. You want to just tie it in, not just in getting to know your students, but also in your plan. So when you're writing your lesson plan and then you're doing your lesson plan rationale, you want to share. You want to share about why you picked these strategies, why you decided to use small group instruction, or why you decided to do workshop, or why you decided to use technology based on your learners, not based on what you learned from your teacher education program, or not just based on what your district is doing or your school's doing, but based on what you know about your kiddos. And of course, we always want to connect it to the standard, so that doesn't mean you just teach a lesson on Pokemon because your kids like it, but you could teach a lesson on place value and include Pokemon cards and have your students decompose a 3-digit number based on the Pokemon card that received. And you could talk about, hey, my kids love Pokemon, so we're doing Pokemon math, and that's been so much fun. All right. And the third and final thing is be evidence-based, okay? Throughout your entire plan, you want to write it like you're a lawyer girl and you are going up to that judge and you're telling him all the reasons why you should win this case. So consistently refer to evidence, whether it's your lesson plans, your videos, your student work samples, IEPs. Definitely, I want to know that you've looked at your student's IEP because that's a legal document. I want to make sure you're referencing it. And your students' ELL levels. I want to make sure that you've done your homework on your kiddos and you know them really well. But again, throughout your entire submission, when you're talking about reflecting, you're connecting it to the evidence. When you're talking about your application, you're talking about the evidence, and that could include your content standards as well and what comes next in that progression of standards. So I hope you enjoyed my 3 tips for writing the CalTPA, do's and don'ts. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you'd love to hang out with me and meet with me sometime, click on my Calendly, book an appointment, and we'll get together and talk more shop CalTPA. See you next time.